reading chapter 5, what was your opinion of President Johnson?
After reading chapter 5 or chapter 6?
It's really, I think there was more in chapter 5 about him, but we didn't really talk about it last time. So I wanted to go back and just kind of touch bases on that, because they talked about Great Society, Medicare, Head Start. He put a lot of programs into place. I think he was president for about 6 years, picking up on JFK's presidency on his term, finishing out his term, and then serving for one additional term before he decided not to run again.
And the question was, what do we think about his legacy as president?
Yeah, because he's really not. I mean, I feel like JFK is given a lot in terms of being progressive and working with the civil rights movement, but in actuality, he wasn't president very long, and it was Johnson that kind of had to pick up the torch and pass the Civil Rights Act and all that stuff. So did you have an opinion of him after you read chapter 5?
Well, my opinion on President Lyndon B. Johnson was, I don't think that much he did in his presidency stood out. I think that he had good intentions and really wanted to help. I just think that the powers that be interfered with some of the things that he wanted to go forward with in regards to really providing the Black community what we at that time and still do to this day desperately needed. And I believe that the pressure that mounted upon him because of what it went on, and I just think he didn't want to. And not only that, the decision he made regarding the Vietnam War that he and Dr. King were at odds about the money that needed to go into poor communities, were a lot of the money that was being funded for wars could have went into that community. And this is something Dr. King recognized and called not just him out, but called out the government altogether. And I just think I think that right there stained what could have been or would have been a great legacy for him. And I don't think he wanted to go forward knowing that he didn't want to go forward with his presidency, well, running for a second term, knowing the decision he made.
Definitely. And I think, he didn't do well, during some of the when they did some of the polling. So he didn't do well. So he made a decision not to run. But I definitely think the Vietnam, thing put the nail in the coffin, and the protests and the unrest that was just going on in society in general. I think that his approval rating just kind of plummeted after that. And so it kind of put the nail in the coffin. Shauna, did you have any thoughts about his presidency and his legacy in terms of civil rights?
I think he did a lot. He did more than anybody had really ever done before that point. And that pretty much ended with him, because after that, we didn't get anything.
Shauna, can you turn your volume up a little bit higher? We can hear you, but we can't hear the bass in your voice.
Can everybody else hear me? Because it's all the way up.
It sounds like you're further away from your device. That's what it sounds like.
Are you covering your mic or something?
Because I could hear you at first, Shauna, and then it seemed like you were far away.
Can y'all hear me now?
It's
same.
It's still the same though, I think.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
We can just listen closer to the phone.
Yeah. So you were saying you felt like, and I felt the same way, Shauna. I felt like he actually did a lot, to pick up the presidency like he did and get the Civil Rights Act passed, when there was a lot of opposition to it passing, putting the Medicare in place, Head Start, those things. I felt like he actually did quite a bit, but his legacy was just kind of tarred there.
Right. Can y'all hear me now? Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I feel the same way. Like he really did a lot, and after that, there was really no movement. Basically.
Right. All right. Jessica, did you have any thoughts on it from the last chapter that we read?
Sorry, I was trying to connect my Bluetooth. um, Not really. I mean, I agree with both of y'all, and I feel like Johnson was the first white person to really kind of to really understand what was happening, understand the plight of Black people, and try to make it known to others. Honestly, he was the first woke white person. So that was it. Yeah, and he basically tried to do what he could, but I don't know why he thought what he thought. I think he did. He's like other people. They kind of underestimate the power of racism, and that was him.
Yeah. I was just doing some reading and they were saying that he was a deeply religious man and that he couldn't reconcile, you know, treating another race badly or treating someone badly based on race, that he could not reconcile that, which other people and Southerners didn't seem to have a problem doing. And so that was the one thing about him that kind of really stood out to me. But like I said, then you have the whole Vietnam War and the our escalation and participation, so you have the flip side to that. So you have, in my opinion, you have JFK, who kind of everybody holds, on a pedestal with Camelot and then being a young president, all these things. But then it was kind of LBJ that kind of actually picked up and kind of moved forward with a lot of the things that he was doing. So that's kind of stood out to me. And then we have in direct opposition to that, Nixon. So did anyone else think about the backlash with President Obama and Trump? Did anyone else think about that while they were reading when Nixon
I'll
was?
tell you what I read
Mhm.
was Trump 2.0, basically.
They
Like,
yeah.
I mean, Trump essentially used Nixon's playbook in every single thing, so much so that it was eerie to even sit there and read it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like really reliving it all over again. And the fact that Black people actually think that Trump did so much for them when he basically used the same illusions that Nixon used in
Mm-hmm.
order to make it seem like that was the case, and it's really not. So yeah.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Because all I could think about when I was reading was this is just, exactly what we just lived through, but it happened, 40, 60 years ago,
Hmm.
But that's what I just kept thinking the whole time. Um, and the fact that, you know, Nixon took the whole rhetoric of the Black Power movement and then basically stripped it and used it against us,
Hmm.
right? And so, what were your feelings about that? Because he took Black Power, but then he flipped it into you need to save yourself. You
Right.
I
know,
thought
we're not going to fund anything. We're not going to put any money, actual money towards helping you. But we're going to promote the idea and give you the feel good kind of narrative of what's going on.
I thought it was disrespectful and devious, and I was honestly floored reading the chapter about how much it worked, and I don't know. It was just kind of like even when you even divided the goals of the Black Panthers, from political to economic, and it kind of split the leadership party in there, and what they wanted to achieve and everything. And I was just like, you. It, I don't know. It was just honestly crazy to me that every time, and they kept creating these faux. Well, I don't want to say faux agencies, but ghost, basically, yeah, just there for stand-in agencies that pretend like it was going to do something. Like you were saying, actually cost. He wanted no cost, and when they tried to do something good, he automatically shut it down, and that person ended up retired. What is it? Retiring or something like
Resign.
that.
Yeah, you talking
Yeah,
about
resigning.
George Romney with HUD that was really trying to push, anti-discrimination in terms of housing.
Yeah, and it was somebody else too, and I was just like, a few voices definitely could not stand out in the Nixon administration. So yeah, I just thought it was disrespectful and definitely something I never would have thought of. But I'll give it to him. He's good at what he does. So
Mhm. DeAndre, did you have any thoughts about Nixon?
Well, in regards to what you all said, and yeah, in regards to what I read, I think that Nixon, like Trump, and even like other presidential candidates, and pretty much, and like other presidential candidates, I think that the only time that they ever utilize, the only time that they ever need, how do I say this in a way where this is as accurate as possible? A lot of the candidates, the only time that they are ever interested in black people and unifying and getting on black people's side is to use it for their own political and economic advantage, not for the greater good of the black community. And I think that him utilizing and promoting the Black Power movement, it was used. He did it, I think, to promote himself, but he knew inevitably it would lead to the disempowerment and the disenfranchising of the Black Power movement, because you know that the powers that be, such as the COINTELPRO and even the FBI at the time, are watching these people.
Mm-hmm.
And you made it more visible and more prevalent and more known. And by doing that, you gave them an opportunity to really study this group to see, okay, this is how we can dismantle these people. This is how we can apply the divide and conquer technique that we have used for every other black movement. And if it worked for them, because the promoting them has worked for us too, these disempower these disempowerment strategies and tactics will also work against this group as well. So I believe that's what he did. I also say this, and
Mhm.
even though this is irrelevant to what this is irrelevant to what everyone else has said, I think that the stain on his legacy, Richard Nixon, is not only that, but the fact that he took us off the gold standard, and we have been printing money ever since. This was in 1971. He made the announcement that he's taking the US off the gold standard,
Mhm.
and money has been printed and money has become debt. And that's why the money that we work for and the money that we possess is really not valuable at all. It's lost over 95% of its value. And although I understand that and even today I understand that a lot of people are in a position where they need the money being printed out, but the reality is this, that at the rate in which money is being printed, it
Mhm.
is going to lead to an inevitable flush in our economy. And I think by him doing that, that changed a lot for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that are still working that's it's going to take them probably longer than they expected to retire because of that decision, because money is debt now.
Right. What was the reason that he took us off of gold standard?
Now that is a great question. I have to go back and do the research. See, other countries were already doing that. They had already taken their economies off the gold standard. I really,
Okay.
that's a great question. I have to go back and do the research behind it. I just know he made the announcement and he did it and it changed everything.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that'd be something good for us to look into, um, for maybe next time. And another thing that I noticed that he did was really, he kind of took the unrest that was going on at the end of Johnson's administration and flipped it. And it took me back to the previous book we read, The New Jim Crow, when we talked about, the he was really kind of, I think, the beginning of the dog whistle language, you know. I think there was a quote in the book a little bit later that talks about, you know, in 1950 something, you could say the word, the N word, right? And then a few years later, it's like, no, you can't say that word out loud. I know I'm not making a direct quote, but then these are the words that you can say. You know, this is the language that you kind of go into when you start talking about crime and curbing things, and you know. And I just think about where we are right now, even the ads that are going on right now. Nixon was kind of the father of all of that stuff, you know. And it's like you said, Yashonda, it's so eerie to kind of watch what's going on, what happened all those years ago, still happening like right now, you know, right this minute. You know, you can turn on TV and see the ads for the Republican Party talking about, you know, just chaos in the streets and socialism and communism, and they have to stop the spread of it. So Nixon really does kind of start that. And I don't know if she mentioned that in the new Jim Crow. I know she talked about which president started it, but I think from what this book says, that he was really kind of the father of it, we know, with the ads and everything. And so there was a lot of upheaval, you know, and I think there was a lot of, they were talking about the fear that was driving a lot of decisions that was going on in the Caucasian community. But it made me think about this summer, and I know this is a clip that you all probably have heard a lot, but it was Kimberly Johnson kind of explaining why people riot, and I just wanted to play it. I can't, I don't know how to share my screen on this iPad, but I just have the audio of it, and I wanted to play it for a few minutes and then discuss it to see what we thought about, you know, the way she explains rioting and what drives people to those type of acts, you know, versus, you know, the 60s to 2020.
So I've been seeing a lot of things talking of the people making commentary. Interestingly enough, the ones I've noticed that have been making the commentary are wealthy Black people making the commentary about we should not be rioting, we should not be looting, we should not be tearing up our own communities. And then there's been an argument of the other side of we should be hitting it in the pocket. We should be focusing on the blackout days where we don't spend money. But, you know, I feel like we should do both. And I feel like I support both. And I'll tell you why I support both. I support both because you have a civil unrest like this. There are three types of people in the streets. There are the protesters, there are the rioters, and there are the looters. The protesters are there because they actually care about what is happening in the community. They want to raise their voices, and they're there strictly to protest. You have the rioters who are angry, who are anarchists, who really just want to shit up, and that's what they're going to do regardless. And then you have the looters. And the looters almost exclusively are just there to do that, to loot. Now, people are like, well, what did you gain? Well, what did you get from looting? I think that as long as we're focusing on the what, we're not focusing on the why. And that's my issue with that. As long as we're focusing on what they're doing, we're not focusing on why they're doing. And some people are like, well, those aren't people who are legitimately angry about what's happening. Those are people who just want to get stuff. Okay, well then, let's go with that. Let's say that's what it is. Let's ask ourselves why in this country in 2020, the financial gap between poor Blacks and the rest of the world is at such a distance that people feel like their only hope and only opportunity to get some of the things that we flaunt and flash in front of them all the time is to walk through a broken glass window and get it. That they are so hopeless that getting that necklace, getting that TV, getting that change, getting that bed, getting that phone, whatever it is that they're going to get, is that in that moment when the riots happen and if they present an opportunity of looting, that's their only opportunity to get it. We need to be questioning that why. Why are people that poor? Why are people that broke? Why are people that food insecure, that clothing insecure, that they feel like their only shot, that they are shooting their shot by walking through a broken glass glass window to get what they need. And then people want to talk about, well, there's plenty of people who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and got it on their own. Why can't they do that? Let me explain to you something about economics in America. And I'm so glad that as a child, I got an opportunity to spend time at Push where they taught me this, is that we must never forget that economics was the reason that Black people were brought to this country. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Do you understand that? That's what we came to do. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Now, if I right now decided that I wanted to play Monopoly with you, and for 400 rounds of playing Monopoly, I didn't allow you to have any money. I didn't allow you to have anything on the board. I didn't allow for you to have anything. And then we played another 50 rounds of Monopoly, and everything that you gained and you earned while you were playing that round of Monopoly was taken from you. That was Tulsa. That was Rosewood. Those are places where we built Black economic wealth, where we were self-sufficient, where we owned our stores, where we owned our property, and they burned them to the ground. So that's 450 years. So for 400 rounds of Monopoly, you don't get to play at all. Not only do you not get to play, you have to play on the behalf of the person that you're playing against. You have to play and money and earn wealth for them, and then you have to turn it over to them. So then for 50 years, you finally get a little bit and you're allowed to play. And every time that they don't like the way that you're playing, or that you're catching up, or that you're doing something to be self-sufficient, they burn your game. They burn your cards. They burn your Monopoly money. And then finally at the release and the onset of that, they allow you to play and they say, okay, now you catch up. Now at this point, the only way you're going to catch up in the game is if the person shares the wealth, correct? But what if every time you share the wealth, then there's psychological warfare against you to say, oh, you're an equal opportunity hire. So if I played 400 rounds of Monopoly with you and I had to play and give you every dime that I made, and then for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it like they did in Tulsa and like they did in Rosewood. How can you win? How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. So when they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. Trevor Noah said it so beautifully last night. There's a social contract that we all have, that if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken. And if the social contract is broken, why the f do I give a shit about burning the Football Hall of Fame, about burning the Target? You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets and didn't give up. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth. You broke the contract when we built our wealth again on our own, by our bootstraps in Tulsa, and you dropped bombs on us. When we built it in Rosewood and you came in and you slaughtered us. You broke the contract, so your Target, your Hall of Fame. As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. And it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what Black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
So I'm sure a lot of you, are probably familiar with that. Of course, that was Kimberly Jones from, I want to say that actually was taped in Atlanta during the riots.
I'm not familiar with it. That was my first time hearing it. I wish you could have shared the screen.
Yeah, well, it's Kimberly Jones, and just go under Kimberly Jones discusses riots and you'll find it. And then they have another video on YouTube with Trevor Noah. I guess she actually did a follow-up interview with Trevor Noah. And I guess I was just really taken by her passion and
that was powerful.
Her passion was just so powerful, and the way she articulated it, and the analogies she made to me were just so powerful. It gives me goosebumps actually, just to hear her during the time of the riots with George Floyd this summer. So just some, what are your thoughts after hearing her? If you've heard it before, if this was your first time hearing it, what are your thoughts about it?
All right. Well, my thoughts are, as you said, very powerful, extremely powerful, especially with the passion which she spoke from. And I'm about to make a bold statement, and I'm gonna make this publicly eventually. No one who is a part of a race that played a part in the Atlantic slave trade has any business telling Black people that they need to pull themselves by their own bootstraps. Whether you are a Jew, whether you are Portuguese, whether you are Arab, whether you are any other race, and especially if you're white, you should not be saying stuff like that, because that is incredibly disrespectful. Because of that, you were able to get a 400-year head start. So you should not be saying that shouldn't even come out of your mouth. You shouldn't even be comfortable enough in your own skin, especially if you've done the research to even say something so foolish. So I'll start by saying that. Also, I want to say that it's just what she described is pretty much what Dr. Claude Anderson said in his book, Black Labor, White Wealth, about how Black people were placed in a real life monopoly game, and that we cannot win because we never got our 40 acres and a mule, and we never got what we needed to be given an advantage. And the smallest advantage we were given got taken away for no reason whatsoever. And it's really kind of crazy, because when in-depth, brutally honest and open discussions about racism are had, especially with white people, a lot of them don't want to be a lot of them just aren't open to the understanding. And it becomes frustrating. Now, personally, I've not had the luxury of arguing. I have not had the luxury or the experience of arguing with anybody white, because I don't argue with people anyway. I haven't had the experience of arguing with any white person or any person of any other race regarding these issues. And I pray I don't ever have that experience, because the proof is in the pudding, the information is out there, and there's overwhelming evidence to prove the point. Now, if you are shown that, and if you are revealed that, but you choose to think otherwise, then that just goes to show you that you are the problem. That's all I have to, those are my thoughts on that.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts on Kimberly Jones?
I agree. And Mehrsa has touched on that throughout the book. Almost every chapter, she goes back to saying that without any type of reparations, there's just no way to level the playing field.
It's not.
Period.
Right. Because the views are just so different on what happened. I think later in the chapter, they talked about Greenspan and how he separated discrimination. Yes, Blacks were discriminated against, but we were exploited. And I'm like, how could you
Right.
say that?
It was
Like,
both of them. Discriminate against and exploited.
Right.
Exploited, period.
Exploited, period. The free labor, the segregation, all of those things that, like he said, that the Caucasian community benefited from. Our exploitation, being segregated into the ghettos, being separated, being charged the higher prices, all these things that happen. And for him to say, yeah, you're discriminated against, but no, I don't agree with the exploitation. So it's kind of like this whole thing that goes back to Nixon of kind of, what did he say about civil rights? Or he had a speech, and I think they said he had crossed out, was it forget civil rights, or was it forget?
Yep,
Was it
that's what it was.
Might have been something worse than that. I thought maybe language-wise. But basically, let's move on past civil rights. Let's move on. Let's get over it. So that was one thing that I just kind of just the thing that we're always fighting against. Then the other thing was kind of the discussion about, again, going back to the banks, because you had the second rise of banking again. Doing
Which
this,
we were being exploited through as well. We put in money into the banks that were created for us, that's getting circulated and loaned out to the white community. So you can't win for losing.
I guess my question is, do we even think that, they said that banking, having a Black bank had more of a psychological component for the Black community. Do we see that? I mean, we're in a more rural community. So, I've never been connected to a predominantly Black bank before, So do we feel like there's something that is even helpful, or has it even worked? Because I think at one point,
it's still just fluff. I think it's still just a psychological thing. What power do these Black banks have that we bank with? It's still just window dressing. And a lot of them, the only reason that they're still thriving now is because they have some type of relationship with the larger white banks.
So it was interesting that they, the government, or Nixon had the thing about the deposits going into Black banks. But then it turned out to be, it was such a small amount of what they were supposed to do that it really was not an economic benefit for anyone. They talked about all the things that about Black banks, they never became a real vital instrument. They had higher operating costs. They have smaller deposits because of poor clientele, and then they're volatile. So people take money in, they put money in, they take it out, So there's constant revolving door. Usually they're only a third of the size of your average commercial white bank. They have lower interest rates. So if you put your money in, then you're going to earn less money having your money, typically in a Black bank than you would a commercial bank. And then, like I said, deposits are unstable. Government deposits were even unstable. So is it something that we feel like, I know like Killer Mike has, he just started an online bank, right? With some other people. Do we feel like that's something that is important for our community?
Not
to do?
now. I don't
Right.
think.
And when I was looking at it, it was something specific about Greenwood that said something. Hold up. Actually, let me look it up, because I was talking about this with somebody the other day, and it had some type of disclaimer. And I'm like,
I was thinking about it. I haven't had time to look into it yet. But I've seen him doing interviews, of course, lately about opening up.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't even think that's important at this point, because one, I don't think in this day and age you can start a bank well, not a Black owned bank, Black owned bank especially, but like people won't. It's a trust thing, because these other banks have been around for so long. You kind of trust them now, and you trust your money being in there. And two, let's say a Black owned bank started up in your community. Okay, well, then it would have community money, but since you can't travel and still have access to an ATM or something, people wouldn't go for it.
So
Found it.
there you go. I'm looking at it. It says Greenwood is not a member of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Banking services will be provided by FDIC member banks. Well, there you have it. Like I said, is connected to these larger white banks. It's not functioning on its own. So I understand what they're trying to do, but I think, like I said, it's just another case of fluff. It's a psychological thing.
The thing is with that, I'm glad you read that disclaimer. Based upon where we are right now, because we're building from the ground up, it's not like Tulsa or Rosewood that we had something established prior to being demolished. What I'm asking is, I think there's almost, no matter what we try to do, there's almost no way around not going through white supremacy to establish something for our own. So it's like you said, it's fluff. I'm not sure if I'll say it's fluff or that it will or won't work. I just think that it's a matter of, if we're gonna get allies, getting people that we can trust.
And see, that's the other thing. I'm just trying to see how this is going to work differently than all the other ones that we
Mm-hmm.
read about. It's
Mm-hmm.
when it's literally under the same blueprint. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
there's nothing different about their setup than what we've been reading about. And
Yeah.
the other thing was the thing that she's talked about the most throughout this whole book is the neighborhoods that these banks are servicing. You're starting with poor people.
Right.
You have to do something about the wealth first before you can even do anything significant to where people can have a place to put their money that's going to create even more money for them, which is the root of the problem, not the problem of opening the banks, but the people are already poor to begin with. How do you change that?
Right.
You see what I'm
And
saying?
Hmm.
I think, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jessica.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say, I think Killer Mike went wrong with the bank, but he did go right, because I felt like that was him and Ti. Well, right and wrong, with taking over Bankhead Fish and, like, turning that. So, like, I feel like if you start with businesses and buying property and community and things like that, actually creating your community and getting, because I think Bankhead Fish is, I don't think they pay. I don't know. They might pay mortgage. I don't know. But trying to make your neighborhood and your community better, I think that's the better way to go. Buying up property, making sure that it's paid for. Nobody can really try to take it from you, stuff like that. I think that'll better help the community than trying to start a bank for them.
But what about the assertion that, and I see both sides. I know what he's trying to do. Like you said, it's kind of just like the 2020 version, now 2021 version of what the cycle, right? I think it was, like he said, Jackie Robinson did it. He had a little bit of a different experience though, because he said that he felt like there's powers that be went easy on him, right? So I was wondering if that wasn't because he was Jackie Robinson, you know.
That's what it was.
Right. Because I was like, everywhere else we read, that was not the case. They were quick to come in and shut them down, and it'd be a lot tougher on them. But he had the kind of experience where they were being softer. But then again, they talked about in the book of, it seems like we can't get away from the small business structure, like, the Bankhead Fish and the restaurants and the hairdressers and the
Barber salons.
right, all those type
Yeah.
things. And is that really getting us, even though that's great? I mean, of course, we, want to champion those things in our community and support those businesses. Is that really getting us to economic parity? And I thought it was interesting too that they talked about one of the biggest economic forces in the Black community was not always legal, like
Right.
a hustler.
I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, it can still work because small businesses can grow into big businesses. Bankhead Fish technically could open a second location. Slutty Vegan is doing well during the COVID. She's already opened up another location. She's already got that bar going into that building, and she's already opening up a third. So It's just about how you branch out, I guess. Well, I think it's about branching out.
I think that our issue is cooperation and collaboration, because instead of people pooling their resources together, everybody's trying to do their own thing. Everybody's continuously in competition with
Yep.
each other. So that's why you only have these small boutique businesses instead of people banding together and like, okay, we're going to make this a national brand, or we're going to make this a global type
Mhm.
brand. It's because everybody wants to do their own thing and not really work together.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, but let me first address something Jessica said regarding when you compare Slutty Vegan to Bankhead Seafood. You have to understand Bankhead Seafood was on the verge of closing its doors before T.I. and Killer Mike saved it. So as far as opening up a second location, they probably have more economic resources, both individually and collectively, especially to definitely make that happen in the near future. Slutty Vegan has not been around as long, but you do have a point with how she's opened up a location. Because I've been to her location. Well, I've been by it in downtown Jonesboro. I think the other two are in like Atlanta somewhere. I haven't been to those areas yet. But also addressing what Yashonda said regarding the collaboration, the competition. Yes, you do have a point, and I do think that if we definitely pull our resources together, we can definitely make something happen faster. Because we have to understand something that business is a team sport, and the way the best businesses are built are by building the best business teams. It's not meant for everyone, especially if you have any experience or know anyone that has experience in business as an entrepreneur, or as a small business owner. You know that you are only good about to keep yourself from wearing so many hats. You have to align yourself with people that are strong in areas where you're weak. And it is great to be for one. It's great to start out. Well, I'm not gonna say it's great, but starting out as a sole proprietor, that's how the average business owner, whether black or white, starts out. But in the long run, once you build a team, you should not be wearing every single hat. Because when you start out, you're gonna have to be the marketing person, you're gonna have to be the branding person, you're gonna have to be the salesperson. That's another thing with black people. We don't like to, we and that, this is just a problem, period. We do not like we have this aversion to sales. Like we think salespeople are bad. We think selling is bad. But historically, anciently, and even biblically, selling is actually great if people look at it, because you cannot make any money if you don't sell anything. But that's not what I want
I
to
don't
do.
want to interrupt you, DeAndre. I'm gonna let y'all. I'm gonna log off myself, but y'all will still be able to continue the meeting. But my driver is here, so I'm about to head to the airport. Hopefully, see some of y'all in person. Well, it's gonna take me a whole day to get there. So,
Sound good.
but yeah.
Have a safe flight.
Yeah, you be.
All right. Thank you.
We'll see you here. All right. Well, yeah.
Sandra, I'm assigning you as the host. Okay.
Okay.
Nobody saw that, did they? I didn't know my video started.
Oh yeah, I saw you.
Oh, I didn't see you.
I hope not, because I ain't got on no clothes. All right.
I didn't see you, Jessica.
All right. But Sandra, you can hear me, Sandra?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
But yeah, to Yashonda's point, it's like we have to take into consideration with business, because you're talking to someone that I did business to business sale. I'm working with a world-class sales trainer right now, and I have a business of my own. So I'm not just telling you stuff that I read about, I'm telling you stuff that I've experienced myself.
Lived experience, yeah.
And also various millionaires that I've talked to and people that I've listened to. But anyway, to get to the point, the best teams are built, the best businesses are built when we build the best teams and we're able to leverage the strengths of other people. Because by leveraging other people's strengths, you can capitalize off of those and get strong in those areas. Like if you're not good at public speaking, okay, I can learn from somebody that's better, and as a result of learning from people that's better, I can become better. But I will admit, this is what I do like about what's going on nowadays. I like the fact that we're thinking on our own, that we are thinking freely and independently, because that is the beginning. But we have to understand that we can't stop there, and that at some point we will need the help. And rather than trying to do our own thing and figure it out on our own, we need to team up with other people, and even better, we need to get mentors. Because if you can get somebody that has figured out successfully in a fraction, if you can get somebody that has already successfully figured out what you're trying to figure out, you can save yourself 5, 10, or even 20 years of trying to do something that you can do in 5 years.
Right.
And be coachable and be willing to listen. That's another problem that we have. So
Do you think there's a
these are problems that I've
revolution?
had. I'm not gonna be honest with you, these are problems that I've had. But what was your question?
No, I said, do you feel like there's a revolution going on now in terms of Black people being open to starting their own business? Because it seems like it's happening a lot now, and I don't know if that's just like you said, the proliferation of information. You know, we have information at our tips of our fingers that even 20, 25 years ago wasn't there like it is now. And so you do have so many chances to network with people because of the internet, because of situations like this, that it might not have been easy, 30 years ago, but now it's so much easier. That I was just wondering, do you think there's a shift in mindset toward moving away from just working to ownership?
Well, to be honest with you, yes, absolutely. There's definitely a shift in the mentality. I like the shift. To be honest with you, I think that people have realized. And here's the thing: we are in the age of entrepreneurship. We're in the age of artificial intelligence. Certain
Right.
jobs and certain careers that were around are not going to be around for very long. And
Right.
a lot of us have come to that realization. Some of us lived through the 08, 09 recession. How many people lost jobs, lost houses,
Right.
and couldn't pay their mortgage, couldn't pay their car insurance, and had to move back in with parents, etc. Just look at this year alone.
Exactly.
How many people have lost their jobs, lost their careers? How many people contracted COVID? And they probably didn't think. As a matter of fact, let's go even deeper. How many people I know someone right now that worked for years and had 100,000. Well, I don't know him. I know there was somebody that I was working with who told me that he had a buddy of his that had over $100,000 saved up in his 401k. And when the coronavirus happened and it began to take effect on our economy and also affecting the stock market, because we know the 401k is tied into the stock market,
Right.
that individual lost over $100,000 of their retirement money.
Wow.
What?
Yes, that's what the guy told me.
And that's devastating for somebody. I mean, that's absolutely devastating. Because how
Yeah.
many years did it take to get that? And then do you have that much time left working to regain that?
To
Yeah.
either regain it or go even further than that. And it's not like in America, $100,000 is enough retirement money anyway, but
Right.
it's better than nothing.
But
Right.
wait, isn't 401k insured or something or backed?
No,
But
it's directly tied into the stock market. And I'm gonna make another point addressing that, and then then I will let Miss Sandra move on because I don't want to do too much talking. But
Yeah.
anyway, the 401. So here's what happened: Wall Street and corporate America came together to formulate a plan, because prior to the 401k, companies, you can work for a company for 30 to 40 years and retire, and they would take care of you. But they realized that it got too, and they give you pensions too. They
Right.
realized that it got too expensive for them to be doing that. So what they decided to do was allow people to take care of themselves by just simply putting 401ks together. They can contribute and we'll match their contribution.
Not all of them, but yeah.
Yeah, not all of them, but
They'll match up to a certain point, just to a certain percentage. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. That's a way that I think they felt like the life expectancy was growing, and they're taking care of people 30 years after they retire. These people are 80, 85 years old. It's like, you're still here, we're still paying out. And they realize that that's too expensive to do. And so basically you get this one lump sum payment, and then good luck, to you. Yeah.
But I
mhm.
also let me address one last thing though.
Go
Even
ahead.
in the process of the culture shift that's taking place, like I said, I like it. It's just a matter of us coming together and realizing there's still a lot more work to do because here's the difference between during the civil rights movement and every movement prior to that and today's time. When we were forced to think on our own and create our own, we also had to get our own distribution. We had to get our own factories. We had to create our own products and our own services. Now today, we a lot of the businesses that we have that are starting every day, a lot of times we're not creating, a lot of times we don't have that economic power base to where we can have our own factories and create our own products and our own services, because as long as we have small stores that are still selling products by major corporate conglomerates, they're still making money. They're probably making more money off of us than we're making off of our own businesses, because when we run out, now we got to go to a bigger retailer and buy more of their products to sell in our own stores.
Right. Right. What did we think about the pool? Which I noticed this, and I was wondering, could it coexist? Like, there's this one thought process that Black capitalism or capitalism is bad, right? And they talked about that with, um, the Black Panthers. They were more of a, kind of like helping the collective, right? Almost kind of like a socialistic type thing. Everyone takes care of the community as well, taken care of, versus capitalism. And they talked about how Jesse Jackson in 1 year's time went from being, anti-capitalism to, then moving forward and having, having a whole platform based on, economic empowerment. You start seeing the rise of, the Black magazines that are kind of promoting economic power. You start seeing, different TV shows again that go kind of by the pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality that you were talking about before, DeAndre. So what do we feel like is the pull between anti-capitalism and capitalism, and can they exist? That was my question. Can they coexist?
Well, anti anything can never exist with with its opposite, no matter what it is, whether it's capitalism or whether it's a inflammatory diet or an anti-inflammatory diet. You cannot eat fried chicken and hot wings and French fries and also eat fruits and vegetables and think you're gonna have a good balance out, because
How balanced?
because
Balance.
you're off balance. So
Right.
to answer that question,
Mm-hmm.
can it? I think that with the, because I kind of heard what you were saying, but it's kind of like you went in depth with the question. I think that definitely with the rise of Black capitalism, can they exist? Can you repeat the question?
No, I was just wondering, could they coexist? And I was thinking about something that people like, can you have both a society where you invest in your community, you're making money, but also you're taking care of the collective? I guess that's what I meant. Like, can you do both things at one time? And I thought about, there's a movement now called social entrepreneurship, where you have a social component built into your business sometimes, where you're giving back to the community as well. And so I guess that's what I was thinking about. But it just seemed like in the 60s there was this tug between, like the Black Panthers and that train of thought, that even Jesse Jackson kind of bought into, but then kind of switched over to, capitalist type of thing, where you have to make money in order to help your community. And they even talked about certain members of the Black Panther Party that, started making money and moving in the opposite direction. So I guess that was more of my question. Like you said, are they at odds, or can you do both?
Well, I think it depends on the outlook and the perspective. I believe I think that you have to you have to morally understand that if you're in a position of power like that, because to whom much is given, much is expected, it is your responsibility to use that power to empower not just yourself, but to empower those around you. I also think that the reality is that capitalism, as Black people have always understood it, because capitalism in America was created off of our backs and off of our blood, sweat, and our tears. And not only that, that particular system of capitalism was regulated and further maintained, and still is regulated and maintained to this very day. So a lot of us, capitalism has never been used greatly for it for us, because we've always been the very people that's been leveraged to create this capitalistic system.
Mhm.
Now I'll go ahead and say this: capitalism, I believe, is definitely if you are an individual who possesses the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding to use it the way it can empower you, it's a great thing. I think that capitalism will definitely, if we're given the reparations, will definitely help us out the way we need the help. But also, when it comes to the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding, we're so further divided as a people that a lot of our elite, a lot of our financial elite, whether they're in business, whether they're in entertainment, etc., a lot of us just cannot come together. And I'm seeing this a lot, that even a lot of business partnerships have split, and a lot of backstabbing occurred in our community behind certain things. And a lot of the issues are very small. They can exist. The question is, can we remove the pride, remove the injury, the envy, remove the self-hatred, and remove all of the socially engineered and mental deep and the mental and psychological negative programming and stigma? Can we remove that so that it can work on our behalf rather than against us? Because if we can't, then what's going to happen is it's going to work more against us rather than for us.
Jessica, did you have anything to say about that too?
Um, I think it can coexist, and we've seen examples of it.
Mhm.
The thing is, so like with, you see a little bit of it with Dave and John, you see it with um, Pinky, the slutty vegan owner. She sews back in her community. You see it with Tyler Perry, he sews back into his community.
Right.
But I think, I don't know if, and you know, even Beyonce at times, and but I think that they sew back into the community, and social, well, and yeah, kind of like in social program ways, but I think it would be better if they, well, some of them probably do, but you know, started like a business, like sold back into businesses, or business startups. You know, somebody with a dream, make sure they have give them like a small capital they can start raising funds with, and then kind of give them the tools to kind of help their business grow, and you know, pool together with other people who are like-minded like that person, and maybe they could go into business together. Like, I think that would be a more fruitful venture with their money than just throwing back into community programs by grading a community center building and stuff like that.
Right. Right. And I think I did think about, like you said, Pinky Cole, when you were talking before, Jessica, about how she does kind of so back, well, not kind of, she does so back into the community, you know, and she does a lot of work with giving back to others, you know. So, you know, I just thought that pull between the two ideals were just so, they were interesting, because it's almost like you have one group that's saying, and it's probably take more research on my part about the ideologies going on at that time, but is it, you know, that we should be worried about the group and advancing us as a people, and no one person, you know, trying to obtain or amass a lot of wealth. And
Yeah.
that's the way I took it.
Let me address something else that you said, and this is
Mhm.
just about the anti-capitalism and pro-capitalism.
Mhm.
Here's the thing, because I've been in, and unfortunately, a lot of this has to do with quote unquote religious dogma
Mhm.
about about certain scriptures and misinterpretations. I've had the experience of being in a church where the pastor, a black pastor, one black pastor is saying that he's basically he'll ask the question, well, why do you want to be rich?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when he was asking that, he was saying, well, I was able to travel here and do this without no money. But the reality is that and I understand what you're saying, you don't have to be rich to do that. But the reality is you had money. Don't say you didn't have no money, because what type of message is that sending to someone that really doesn't have money, that doesn't have the money to do the stuff that you said you had the money to do? And then I've met pastors that said that after a small seminar, said that one of the ways to build wealth in America is through real estate. And I asked them, like, a lot of pastors won't dare touch on a subject like that. They don't want to be accused of quote unquote prosperity gospel. But what he was saying is, without money, we won't be able to build a church.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, this is something that I'm getting tired of myself.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our people being stuck in an impoverished cycle because they feel like having wealth is bad, or being prosperous or having money is not something that God wants. Here's the reality. If you know anything about scripture, I don't know if y'all believe or not. Well, scripture says what? God gave you a gift, and a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. It says that I give you the power to obtain wealth so that you may establish my kingdom here on earth. And I
Right.
come to give you life so that you may have it more abundantly. Your
Mm-hmm.
gift is your source of value. What is abundance? Abundance is an overflow. It is a lot. It is large quantities of. So those scriptures alone tell you that God does not want you to be poor. Why would a God that has everything want you to have nothing? That is
Right.
something that we have to understand and get out of religion. But I understand that this was passed down. It's not Christianity or even the word of God. It was how it was practiced and how it was taught and how it was placed upon black people during slavery. That's the problem, not the religion or quote unquote the scripture itself. It was the way it was passed down to people, and because we didn't know for ourselves, most of us, especially people that preached at the time, they passed it down and taught it the way that the slave owner taught them. So a lot of times it's not the information or the education, it's the way in which it was being taught and the way in which you pass it down and teach it to somebody else. That's
Exactly.
the problem.
Well,
Right.
and I get it because honestly, I'm trying to read through the Bible now and study it, but um, I have always thought that you're not supposed to be rich, because when you're rich, it's hard to give up unless you're using it to spread the gospel. But when you're rich, it's hard to give up that for your, it's hard to give up riches, earthly gains for spiritual gains. But I've always been taught there are other ways to be rich, like rich in resources, rich in uh,
Period.
networking and stuff like that. Yeah, so I'm always thinking, okay, well, maybe we're not supposed to, because I be asking for $1 million all the time, but I just figure, maybe you're supposed to get rich in resources, and networking and everything like that, and that's how you are able to. That's what I assumed. The first pastor you were talking about, when he said he traveled here and there and there, and I was thinking, well, maybe he was rich in resources and somebody kind of funded him or something. Though again, you do need money for that. So I
And
get it.
You still
and
have resources though, right? So you were saying so it's not completely true that you don't have anything. You got resources, even if that resource is another person,
That's true.
Yeah.
even people understand, well, they don't want to be broke. They don't want to be broke or poor. They just want to have enough. They just want to be comfortable. But what does that look like? Just having enough, just being comfortable. You have to be specific, because even the scriptures say that he come to give you more than enough, because you're more than a conqueror. Abundance is more than enough. And here's the thing, we all have, whether we notice or not, we all have been given a natural ability that makes us valuable and unique. And money is attracted to value. It's not attracted to college degrees. It's not attracted to working 10, 12, 15 hours on a job. It is attracted to the very thing that you do the very best with the least amount of effort. So I tell people, to start there. What is your gift? What are you so good at that nobody can compete with you in? What is something that you do so well that when people come behind you and try to do it, they say, well, you have set the bar and set the standard so high. How can I even try to compete with you? One of the reasons I do these facilitations the way I do them is because I have to maximize one of the gifts I've been given. And by the way, we've been given more than one, but there's a dominant one that we all have. Miss Sandra, I try to go above and be. I have to do everything with excellence because here's the thing: how we do one thing is how we do anything.
No, it doesn't. You know what? I think it's great. I mean, I applaud you because, like I said, I think it pushes all of us to be, better. Even if it's facilitating a little bit better. I may not have the time to sit down and do a PowerPoint or take the time to do that, but it says, okay, I know I'm coming behind DeAndre this time. Let me up a little bit. Make sure I read and have my questions on point. So yeah, I think it's great.
Okay, but the point in the previous rant about that is this. That's one of the things that keeps us divided. That's why I think they can't go together. As long as we got people in pulpits, and I'm a man of God, I'm faithful, I have a Christian clothing. This is somebody that has a faith-based clothing brand. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Vessel of Christ. This is just something that I've noticed. This is something that I listen to when I hear people. It's like, how can you stand up and preach and pray, but then you turn around and make comments like, well, I'm on a fixed income or I'm broke. You know what the word says about that. It says that at the beginning was the word, and the word was God, and the word became flesh. It also says that life and death is in the power of the tongue. You should be saying that type of stuff, not if you believe, because what does that do to your belief? People who don't know God and they're watching you, what are they gonna think? That's why we got to get away from that.
Right. And I'm definitely a part of a ministry where my pastor, she passed away this summer, but definitely was a proponent of the whole mindset and never speaking that into existence, that I'm broken, money is always circulating, there's always an opportunity, and so we have to be careful. And even going back to your point about some of the prosperity things and the things that may have gotten somewhat of a bad rap before, I did hear one pastor say, if we are all we say that Jesus was poor, and he was not. He was not poor. But if we are all in the same boat and we cannot help each other, then how is that really benefiting the kingdom? If you need a hand and I can't give you $100 without, sweating about it and, just, bemoaning it and needing it back the very next day, then how are we really able to help one another if, we hold ourselves back and we're not making some type of economic gain? So I definitely believe that as well.
So is that why I didn't understand that when I was reading that? Why the Black Panther Party wanted Christians and Jewish churches and synagogues to fund the reparations or fund something? What was it?
I think that goes back to what DeAndre was saying before. I think, or what we were saying before, is that sometimes Christianity, if I'm not mistaken, Jessica, that had been used against the Black community, and that it had gone through I think they were saying Christianity, then it was social Darwinism, all these things had happened. And I think that's why they wanted them to help fund reparations, because they had a dogma that kind of, promoted second class, us being second class citizens, is the way that I read it, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
That's what I'm remembering. I may be incorrect, but that's what I think. Okay. I was just also wondering, it was interesting that they talked about, going back to that whole pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And I'm sure, we've probably all seen reruns of The Jeffersons before. And I know that TV shows always kind of based on the culture of what's going on at that time, you know, there were a lot of TV shows. But I looked at the Jeffersons a little bit differently now, thinking about the things and the programs or the ideology that was being promoted at the time, like with Nixon, you know, that whole thing of, you know, here you have a, you know, a Black man that started out small, you know, and now he's moving on up, you know, like the music says, he's kind of pulled himself up by the bootstraps. He's started out small, but he did it through, you know, his own perseverance, and, you know, didn't have anyone help him. It wasn't because of any social programs. So I just kind of thought that was interesting, that to view the TV show then based on the economic things that were going on in the time, and, you know, the kind of the philosophies that were going on with Nixon, that we're not going to actually help you, but we want to put these feel good stories out there. So now I'm kind of looking at the Jeffersons as like one of those feel good stories, you know. Did anyone else think about that when they were reading?
I didn't. Honestly, I don't. And especially before this book club, I was a pretty oblivious person to things. Like, I just enjoyed them for what they were. So stuff like Amen, the Jeffersons, Good Times, I didn't get the actual message or like see the thing behind it. But now that you say it, yeah, it really was. I know it was about moving. I did get that it was about moving up, and I felt like between Good Times and the Jeffersons, I was like, you know, they're considered. It was kind of crazy to me, and I watched All in the Family too. How these people are considered kind of upper, or at least, you know, making it blacks, but they're still treated like, well, not really Good Times. Good Times, they were struggling, but they were still treated like they weren't good enough. I noticed that when George did a cameo on All in the Family, and I was just like, why do they, you know, and I noticed that there's still no Black people on that show, and I'm like, why do they still treat him like he's nothing? Like, honestly, over in his show, you know, he's technically the man, even though he still gets beat down every once in a while. And it's just like, I don't know. So I can, so you pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Basically, in the Jeffersons, I can see the Black capitalism agenda kind of being pushed, I guess. But then when you go to All in the Family and see that cameo, you're like, okay, well, this is actually reality. So yeah, it's just kind of, yeah, now it's kind of crazy that I started thinking about the parallels between the shows and what they were trying to push in. And Good Times, they were always struggling to make it, and then they would hit a good moment, and then something would go wrong, and it's just like, well, what's the point?
I know. See, here's the thing. I've never really watched those shows. Like,
Yeah,
I watched them, but I didn't watch. I watched them, but I didn't watch them enough to understand the theme behind it nor the message. And the last time I probably watched Good Times or the Jeffersons, I might have been 12. And I'll be 29 next month. So it's been a very, very long time.
Oh, you young. All right.
Well, thank you for telling me, Jessica. But anyway,
but you know,
yeah,
I agree. I think we all, I mean, I haven't watched it either since I was young, you know, to watch the reruns back in the day. And like you, Jessica, I watched it then just for, you know, entertainment. I didn't really think about it. But when they mentioned it in this book specifically, I could see how, given the context of the time and the things that were going on, how a character like George Jefferson would emerge. I guess that's what I was just, you know, pointing out. But I definitely see back, back when I was watching it, when I was a kid, I wasn't thinking about all this stuff, you know, and this would have been, you know, years later, but just seeing now how his whole character could have been used, and it could have been inspiring to some people. Yes, you know, some people would have looked at him and it could have been inspiring, but also it could have been that whole subliminal thing of, you know, see, you don't need us, you know, you don't need the government, you know, this whole shaming that goes on between the economic programs and Black people, and you're in this position because of something you've done, you know, and not kind of recognizing the position we've been put in this country. I could see how a character like him could emerge.
yeah, and that's why that's exactly why I was saying earlier, and I'm gonna add on to what I was saying, how no one who's a part of any race that played a part in the slave trade should be telling black people that they need to be pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps. Which, here's the thing, there are a lot of black people that have successfully done that, but look
Mhm.
at what they had to go through to get there. A lot of them had to pull themselves out of homelessness, out of poverty. So they weren't, so yeah, it
And it's
can happen if we done it. Look at what happened just 20 years after slavery with Black Wall Street.
Right.
A few, well, no, less than 50 years after slavery. Look at what we were able to accomplish with no education, with no resources, with nothing. Definitely no reparations. If we did get any reparations, it was a small bit, considering Jim Crow was going on at the time. So black people have proven themselves that we can definitely, you put us anywhere on this planet, take away everything we have, and if given the opportunity to start over, we can definitely start over and build something. Because here's the thing, black people didn't just build America because the slave trade didn't just take place in America. We built Jamaica, we built Africa, we built Australia and other places that we were taken to. So that's why those type of comments should not be made. Oh, blacks are lazy. Well, we've built everywhere we've gone as slaves. We've built these places. It's just a matter of just it's a matter of taking back the self respect. Is it's really
I agree
frustrating.
because honestly, and when you were saying that, I was like, I forgot, we did do that by ourselves because honestly, you still, I'm kind of in this mentality where apparently black people can't get ahead unless we do the shucking job and grovel at the white man's feet and to get what we need. And honestly, we didn't always have to do that, but it's kind of like, yeah, like they said, like you went from slavery to having quote unquote freedom, but you were still in bondage economically in other ways. So no matter what, we really couldn't thrive the way we would have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you both made some really good points there, and DeAndre, and like you said, a lot of times our focus is on America, but like you said, the ships didn't just stop here in America, like you said, the Caribbeans and all over the
Yeah,
world, there we are, and we're vital in those communities, those were built again off of exploitation
yeah,
Yeah.
of our work. Yeah. So that's an interesting, because like you said, we focus so much on America, but our history is international and worldwide.
yeah.
So did anybody, I think one last thing that I would love to see, and I thought it was interesting with the book again, was going back, and I touched on it briefly before, but the hustler being an economic powerhouse for the Black community.
No, when you
I think mhm.
go ahead. No, go
Now
ahead.
I would love to see, I would love to kind of pick up on a book, that kind of explored that more, because I know a lot, of course, we talk about a lot in music and things, a lot of people have done, different things in order to make it, but just the hustler as maybe even a force of a resource in the community to help you out when you needed it, and I think maybe that was touched upon some of those older TV shows too, that sometimes they went to people in the community that, were not doing things that were necessarily legal, but they could go to them to get a handout, or they would fund some stuff in the community, or they would do a food giveaway. So I think that would be an interesting, take on a subject too.
Well, all right. So the hook. I didn't even see the part where they mentioned that.
The hustler.
I didn't get very deep in this chapter, but I'll just say this, that a lot of the people that live that lifestyle, that yeah, many of them definitely do a great job at giving back toys and bikes and stuff like that. Even you see a lot of hip hop artists, even when a lot of them
Mhm.
when they transition out of that lifestyle and no longer have to do that, they still have that same mentality where they come and give back. But as far as it being an economic powerhouse for the community, I mean, I mean, it depends though, because the average hustler does not make that kind of money. They're not making the money that a Frank Lucas or Rayful Edmonds or even someone like who else? Because there's been so many.
And I think she's talking about
Free,
like a Frank Lucas. I think she's talking like there are people like that in the communities that make that type of money. And
Freeway
DeAndre,
Ricky Ross. Freeway Ricky Ross.
And I think what she was going back on was touching on when we were talking before, like there's been so much focus on the small businesses, but the small businesses have never garnered the type of economic power and been able to help the way some of the ones that have been associated with crime, you know, she said mob type activities have garnered that type of money in the community. And she also pointed out that a lot of times they have the approval of the white majority, and that's something that's not really talked about a lot. So that was just a point that she made I thought was interesting. I'd like to, don't know if there's another work that kind of explores that a little bit more.
Well, here's the thing: the average small business in the black community, as you know, is bootstrapped, is pulled by its very resources. Whereas, whereas with black, any drug dealer or any kingpin, any drug dealer, any kingpin in our community or in any community, where are they getting the type of where are they getting the supplies from? Who's supplying them? Even if you look at if you study the stories, because we remember the TV shows like American Gangster and so many others, a lot of these people were supplied by Dominican and Mexican drug cartels, and being supplied heavily with drugs and guns, with drugs by these bigger cartels, that that on the small business side of the marketplace, that would be what reparations would be for us, being supplied the very resources that we need to grow and be the economic powerhouse for our communities. So my point is this: we haven't. A lot of us don't have connect. A lot of small businesses do not have the connections to the very suppliers that they need to take their businesses off the ground. The closest thing to suppliers for the average small business in our community is Walmart, is Kroger, or a giant retailer. But these retailers have their own suppliers because they do business to business with one another, and they actually get supplies and certain things from other people. McDonald's gets their hamburgers and other products that they sell from other people. Burger King, all the fast food restaurants pretty much get their supply. They have a supplier. They have someone supplying them the very things that they need. They have a partnership with them. We in our community don't have those type of partnerships. That's why we don't. That's why we can't grow like that. But in the case of drug dealers, they have they have the Mexican and Dominican drug cartels. So we don't even have our own drug cartels.
Right. And I think she talks about that too, even with the whole, like you said, with the rise of big business, with the rise of Walmart in the 70s. I think she says when they really started coming into their power, how they then pushed the smaller mom and pops out of business, you know, so it's just this whole cycle. But yet, you know, we have the SBA that still funds the mom and pops, but yet we never have anything that really competes with like a Walmart, you know, of our own. So there's still no economic there.
And the truth of the matter is that a lot of our people have bought. How many McDonald's are owned by us? How many Burger Kings and Pizza Huts? So a lot of us, because it is a lot. Because I'll admit, it is a lot easier when wanting to start a business. It's a lot easier to buy if you have the capital to do it. It's a lot easier buying a franchise rather than starting a business from scratch. Because with a franchise, you already have the system intact. You already have the process. Yeah. So everything that you need to build something successful is already there. It's just a matter of you working the system. If you work the system will work itself. So so with that, I kind of lost my train of thought. So with that being said, a lot of people are better off doing that if they in fact have the capital. So I think that's one of the reasons why we it's hard for us to compete with a Walmart, because a lot of us, what it took to build that, the relationships, the partnerships, and the sweat equity, for a lot of us, it's just a lot easier buying a Walmart if we had a capital. That's a really big if, considering the wealth gap and considering the economic and considering the income level of the average person that come from our community. That's a really big if we can do that. That's why I say that. That's my take on it. And
Yeah.
also along with other stuff we've mentioned, like, are we willing to come together and pull our resources? Because here's the thing, coming together and pulling our resources isn't necessarily us going into business with each other. It's just me opening a store, you sell your products, they sell their products, I sell my products in my store. Like you, Jessica, Yashonda, Jasmine, Nandi, Katie, if you all have a product or a service, you all okay, and I have the big retail store. I can sell you all's products in my store, or you all can go to Kroger and you can do the same thing. Sell you all's products and services, even though they're my competitors, but at the end of the day, we all sell each other products and services. We all are in the same neighborhood. We all in the same neighborhoods around the world. So this money that we have are going to continue to circulate, even though I'm competing against them, you all still are giving your stuff to them. It's
Right.
like that's not what I'm saying is this. We don't necessarily have to do, if we're gonna do our own thing, we can still bring what we're doing together so that you can make money, I can make money, and we can all serve our people and give them what they need. That's
Mm.
what they're doing. And they have and I'm not gonna lie, they do have partnerships where they have credit lines too, so they're not able to use, so they're not even using their own money when they're
Right.
buying their stuff.
Right.
So yeah, that's why. That's enough. I think that's the main reason, because we have a lot. We're starting from scratch, and and like I said, it's gonna take time for us, because we were never given the power base. We were never given the very resources we need. So we're creating more from scratch, whereas other races are given the opportunities that we aren't given.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say that it'll take longer for us. It's not that we can't do it, because like I said, we've already proven what we can do anywhere we go, with no knowledge of ourselves, with no knowledge of who we are, with improper education, with oppression, with all the cards stacked against us. We do a better job than just about every race playing the hand we're dealt.
Right.
So
Right.
we know what we're capable of. It's just a matter of things being in place. It's just a matter of us as a race coming together, being willing to pull our resources together. Even if we're doing our own thing, if we come together and do something, what can that do? If we bring all our entrepreneurial endeavors together.
Yeah, it's like a shift in mindset too.
Yeah.
A shift in mindset that we have everything that we need. It's just how we do it.
Yeah.
We have to just change how we
Because
maybe do things.
here's why I brought up that Walmart. And Jessica, you can intervene if you want, because I am doing a little too much talking.
You're fine.
But anyway, Sandra, here's why I brought up the example of Walmart. Well, here's why I elaborated so heavily upon Walmart, like what you brought up. If you
Hmm.
go to Walmart, you see a clothing section, you see the notebooks and the writing utensils, the journals and the planners. Because I just bought a planner for this year from Walmart, and you see the video game section, you see the boots, you see the toiletry, the cleaning items, and you see the food. All of these different products and services were created individually from different entrepreneurs. They
Hmm.
just brought that stuff together, and now we can sell our own stuff. Now we can sell this to people that they can come and buy from us. I mean, everybody's doing their own thing now. Minute Maid's doing their own thing. Coca-Cola's doing their own thing. Lay's potato chips. What else?
It's kind of
Mayfield.
like
It's
if
like
you had the
P&G.
idea. of a marketplace. Like if you could almost picture it like a old fashioned marketplace, like they have in some countries where you have all these vendors set up. Like if you really visualize, that's what Walmart is. Walmart is the housing supplier. And then you do have all these vendors. And if you saw how many people were really involved in what it takes to make a Walmart, it would probably blow your mind away, right?
Yeah.
But you're right, because if you could visualize it like that, that's really what it is. Then they just give you the house, to come together and bring all these people together to get all these goods and make it convenient for you, so that you're able to go to this one marketplace and get everything you need.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, how you would build that, starting with like, okay, all of us had our own products. Say we all got together, would we then establish like, okay, so we all prove that our products sell. When we come together and we decide to establish something like what's that, like a house, I guess you could say, like our own corporation. So like P&G. So like we're like a P&G where we have all these different brands under the same name. It's all of us, but we just kind of pull together and kind of create a corporation or something. And so then we would take ourselves to a Walmart and say, hey, if you buy into us, you get all of these products lined up on your shelves. Well, how that would work?
Well, here's the thing, because Miss Sandra was talking about how we can do our own Walmart, correct?
No, I was saying that, well, you visualize Walmart being like a big marketplace.
Yeah.
It brings everybody together under one roof, to make it convenient for everybody. Yeah.
Okay, so just skip the middle, just going straight to, okay.
Oh, what I was saying, so here's the thing. Jessica, to answer your question, because Procter & Gamble, I don't know much about Procter & Gamble. I know they do sell like a lot of products that are under their name, kind of like how I'm guessing Procter & Gamble is really kind of like Viacom, because Viacom owns BET, MTV, Fox, and other TV networks. It's all under Viacom is the brand, but those are the different networks. And I think they bought them out. So Procter & Gamble may have bought out those companies that they own. I'm not really sure, because I haven't done much research about Procter & Gamble. But what I can say is that, and it's like I say with Sam's Club, because that's also owned by Sam Walton and the guy that founded Walmart and his family. But even Kroger and places like Target, they're all different competitors now. I'm not saying if we're gonna compete against each other, because we compete more than we collaborate. If we are going to compete, we have to compete in a way where we can still collaborate and still empower our communities. Because like I said, Walmart, Target, and Kroger all, and even smaller even people like Family Dollar and Dollar General and Dollar Tree, they're competing against each other, but they're selling the same products and the same services from the same people, and they're in the same communities. They're in close proximity with each other, if you all notice this. But what they do is they still keep that money into their communities. So what I'm saying is we can still sell our own, we can still have different people own different store, but as long as we are selling the same products and the same services, because here's the thing, if I don't have something available, I can always say, well, why don't you go to them, even though they're my competitor, or why don't you go to these people? We don't have it today, but we'll probably have it tomorrow, because that's what they do. A lot of people will say, well, Books A Million will tell you that we don't have this right now. You may want to go to Barnes and Nobles, or Barnes and Nobles will tell you we don't have this. You can probably want to check in 2 weeks, or you can go to Books A Million, or you can look on Amazon. They'll tell you stuff like that because they understand that although we're competing, we're still collaborating and empowering the same people that we're serving.
Right.
But to get back to the point, we would have to definitely, if we could start our own and sell our own stuff in our own communities, like and I brought this up earlier, like if I owned a store and Sandra's the farmer, Jessica, if you did hair, or Yashonda recorded videos or made videos, and if everybody else had their own stuff, and if I was the one that was the retailer and I paid you all to have you bring my stuff because it's business to consumer, but it's also business to business sell. So I sell the stuff that I sell some of your stuff, but I pay you to sell your stuff, and then you all make, and then I'm earning the money as a brand, but you all stuff are being sold as well.
Right.
And I believe that's exactly, because I got to read the story on Black Wall Street. I believe that's why coincidentally that money stayed in that community. It circulated 36 times before it ever left out. So do you see how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're good to, like you said, do a little bit more research on that too. All right, guys, I think we're pretty much at the end of our time today. I've enjoyed the conversation. I think we have one more chapter?
I think
Two,
two
I
more. I
thought.
think
Two more?
chapter 7 and chapter 8.
Okay, so 2 more chapters. Jessica, would you be up for the next chapter, or did we already assign somebody?
You know what? My throat. It's a little.
Jessica.
Next week.
You'll be fine next week.
Well, I think y'all got somebody. You know what? Why don't we just wait? Yashonda might want to have facilitated that one. So we'll just wait,